Welcome back. Now, let's quickly look at other zones. The North Central, Dio. The North Central, the PDP, of course, pulled an upset there in Plateau State, where it won the governorship election. That state was APC for the past 8 years, but it's going to be PDP now for the next 4 years. Did you see that coming, Dio?
No, certainly didn't. Like you said, it's been...
And that's the state of the campaign DG of the APC.
Exactly. That's what even made it a bit more surprising, is the fact that it's been in the APC's hands for 8 years, and then the DG of the campaign is from there as well. But it goes to show that this particular election...
So different.
Is like none other we've ever seen before. None. And for those who are complaining about the violence and the irregularities and so many other things, the bottom line is that when you look at holistically at all the results, and you see that APC lost 12 states overall, and you see that 20 governors lost their states in the presidential, and you see that 7 governors lost their bid to go to the Senate. That goes to tell you that the will of the voters is what prevailed all the way in this election.
And you don't have all these landslides you used to have in the past.
No. And all the fact that in the past they could write the results any which way they wanted. This seems to reflect the will of the people as best as we have seen in recent times. So I don't think there's too much to complain about. Of course, the loss of life is disheartening, and we wish it didn't happen. The failure of Beavers wasn't the best, and we wish that didn't happen as well. But overall, I would say that what we have at the end of the day is as close to credible results as we could expect. So I think those who won have a strong mandate with which to go out and improve the lot of Nigerians and move our country forward. And those who lost have a lot of lessons to learn from why they lost, especially in cases like that Niger state that you just talked about.
Plateau State.
Plateau State, I'm sorry. Yes,
so Liberals, let's talk about Benue State. That's one state that... well, if you like, was like in the eye of the storm, because everyone was looking out for what was going to happen in that state, especially given the fact that you have a governor in that state who, for want of a better word now, you could say garrulos, or if you like, but, you know, talks a lot. And eventually, the PDP lost the state. That Reverend Father, you think, made the difference?
No, but quickly, let me, before I go there, so I'll tie the two together. What happened in Plateau State is akin to what happened in Kano State when Shekarau took over from Kwakwaso. The candidate of the PDP, remember he was a local government chairman under the previous administration, and when Lalong, the current governor, Dalong, came along, he sacked them even though they were 1 year to the expiration of their tenure, and they, you know, despite all plea, despite court granting orders, the governor insisted that, you know, he was going to have his way. So he became the voice of his colleagues, you know, and consistently worked his way to the heart of the people. And with what we saw, you know, the Plateau, you know, consistent crisis, and with what we saw in the presidential election, it was obvious that Plateau was, you know, for the taking if not careful, if the APC was not careful. And so that was what played out in Plateau.
Something I want you to also talk about. You remember in Plateau State, the APC, I mean, the Labour Party did very well in the presidential election. But in the governorship election, the people just chose to go to their traditional bases.
In the governorship election, the Labour Party candidates, just like the Labour Party candidate in Delta, you know, wanted to ride on the sentiment of Peter Obi, but he wasn't that popular.
He didn't fly.
The most popular candidate in that election was the PDP candidate who had been in the face of everybody, talking about the injustice that was meted out to former local government chairman, you know, and so he was his to take. And then for the same thing, we saw it happen in Ekiti under Fayose. We saw it play out against Kwakwaso by Shekarau, the disagreement. And then the same thing played out in Benue. Apart from Autumn being known as the defender of the Benue Valley, the only time you hear his voice is anytime, you know, at month end, anytime it's time to pay salaries, you hear him talk about Fulani headsmen. You know, I call him the 100-meter dash governor who had to run in the bush, and, you know. But apart from that, I've been to Makurdi. I've traveled all the way from Makurdi to Vandekia through Boko. There is really nothing on ground to campaign with. Suswan, you know, Akume, Suswan took over from George Akume.
Yes.
And a lot of people felt that there were innovative ideas introduced by Suswan that Autumn, mind you, Autumn left the PDP.
Yes,
moved
he
into
came in as an APC governor.
And that Buhari sentiment gave him the victory. And so a lot of people expected him to build on all of that. But nothing. The only viable industries in the state are owned by Autumn. And all of the industries that were started by Apeaku in 1979, the Benue Bricks, the glass factory, and the rest, all of them had gone moribund. And the state government even advertised them, you know, for privatization, and there were allegations that it was Autumn's company that were bidding for this. So a lot of these factors worked against him. And the Reverend Father had been the voice of the opposition. He's been vociferous, supported by George Akume, also, you know, who's been in APC, and that worked for him. There's a word, a lot of them, on the day of election.
Yes, Father.
There's a word, exactly, yes, Father. So, and the moment that, even though you have some people who supported Hembe, because Hembe also has a controversy as a Labour Party candidate who has a lot of issues with elders across board, a lot of people supported him also who felt they do not have hope or belief in Yes Father, but because Hembe was not as credible, you know, if you permit me to use that word, as the candidate of the Labour at the presidential election. So that voters' apathy also was there. They felt, look, we supported Labour, but can we really stake out our neck for the Labour candidate in the state? So, and that's why it became very easy for the APC to just defeat the defender of the Benue Valley in that place. And mind you, the thieves are in the majority. So the Idomas will never, you know, even attempt to want to govern the state. So they always concede that, you know, seats to the thieves and then, you know, settle for the deputy.
Let's quickly rush to the northeast. Yes. So the election is inconclusive in Adamawa, and that's one of the places where we have inconclusive election. Libros, you look at, I don't think there's much to talk about now when you look at the election in Bauchi, Borno. The APC was always going to win Borno anyway, and then Gombe. But that election in Adamawa State, Libros, it's turning out to be a controversial one. At some point, when just shortly after the election, there was fake news all over the place that the woman, that the Senator Binani had won the election. Eventually, it turned out, of course, to be fake news, and now there's going to be a supplementary election there.
Yeah, I think what played out there, I think even the fake news, as at the time that fake news, you know, was hit the airwave, I was one of those that shared the fake news.
Oh, now you have to be careful.
And I had to quickly pull it down when I you know, had to go back to verify. Even as at that time, that it was remaining only one local government to conclude, the current governor of Fintiri was still in the lead. So the Senator Binani was nowhere near, you know, taking the lead. And the speculation was that the local government, the last local government, if you put the entire total number of registered voters in that area, of areas where voting didn't take place, because it was one of the largest local government where voting didn't take place. If you add it to the margin of lead, Senator Binani might be able, you know, if he's able to gather all of the votes there. So it was on that note that a lot of people were alleging, oh, let there not be manipulations here, because mind you, that's also the state of the PDP presidential candidate. Also, people were alleging that maybe APC might want to rig it in favor of, or PDP might want to rig it in favor of the incumbent. And that was where it became, I saw Nigerians rally round, you know, Senator Binani And it was as if, look, let's even break the genes. Let's, for the first time. It almost happened for Mama Taraba in the 2019 election. And then you saw a lot of people saying, let's have, for the first time, break the genes and have a lady, a first female governor, including people that would not want to mention APC. They didn't bother, they didn't care. The platform Senator Binani was, on, all they were just concerned about was that, look, if anything should happen to this election, Nigeria will never be the same again. But even at that time, like I said, Fintiri was clearly in the lead. And but because of the number of registered voters in the area where election didn't take place. For Zulum, like you said, it was almost certain. Yes. Zulum, if you travel around Meduguri, you'll be wondering if it was the same Meduguri
yes,
that
exactly.
you saw here of with insecurity going on. But Zulu had been able to, write his name in gold in the mind of almost everybody there. And so the election was even concluded.
Okay, let me just quickly go to Dio now. Dio, if you look at that election in Adamawa State, you get the feeling that, look, the fact that, the incumbent governor is running against a woman is obviously a challenge.
Without a doubt. I mean, the underdog is always the favored, and also the fact that the opponent is a minority or considered a minority, especially from a gender that has never had an opportunity to hold the helms of power at the governorship level before. I think we've become cosmopolitan enough to where we're beginning to recognize that we are no longer in a strength economy. We're now in a knowledge economy where it's not how physically strong you are, but how knowledgeable you are. It's not about, it's more about what you know and what you can do. And women are as competent, if not more competent than men. I think that created a groundswell of support for this lady, especially when you look at the fact that Adamawa is in the north, which is predominantly a patriarchal society, which
you're
means
very correct.
it's male dominant.
Yes.
Yes, and the fact that a woman can even dare to aspire to higher office, and not just dare, but also now be able to galvanize the kind of support. I think that changed the odds there and made it begin to look like she actually had a chance to break this glass ceiling that has been in place throughout our history, and why so many people are favoring her candidacy. We'll see how it plays out, because the margin is very, very close, and as Libros correctly said, by the time they rerun the election in the places where votes were cancelled, it could possibly alter the way the vote is now, with the current governor leading by a slim margin. The number of outstanding votes that were cancelled is enough to obliterate that margin between the first and second. So we'll wait to see how the supplementary election plays out. But the bottom line is, I think the whole experience has deepened our democracy. It is progress for our democracy. The fact that we have a woman contending for governorship and is a heartbeat away from actually getting there. The fact that we have a Catholic reverend, a Catholic priest in a predominantly Muslim state actually winning an election.
Benue is actually not a predominantly Muslim state.
I checked it too. I checked the percentages on Google.
Oh, really?
Yes, before I made that claim, I went to actually look, and I put it in Google that what is the predominant religion in Benue? Google is wrong.
No, I doubt it, because I think the dominant religion.
Yes, Google is not infallible.
They are predominantly Catholics.
Catholics, yes, exactly.
Okay,
so they're
I thought as much, which was what led me to check.
Christians, and that's the reason why. You look at the governors of that state over time; they've always been Christians.
This is the second time they are having a Reverend Father for a governor.
Yes, it's the second time. Yes, and we just wait to see. But it's beginning to look like Nigeria's next or Nigeria's first female governor, elected female governor now, would come from the north. Even if Binani doesn't get it, because of course it's going to be very tough, I must admit, from my experience of covering election, especially supplementary election, when someone has established a lead, it's always very difficult to obliterate that lead now and take over. But this might just be different. We'll wait and see. But let's quickly talk about now. Let's leave the northeast. Let's talk about the northwest. One state I want us to talk about that I found very interesting would be Kaduna State. Now, where is it? Kaduna State, yes. That election was very close. Of course, we're going to talk about Kano Liberals, but let's look at Kaduna State. It was really, really close. I monitored that election, and when the results were coming out, the results were very, very tight. It was a tight race. What have you got to say, Liberals, about Kaduna?
You see, Kaduna, for example, you have had the consistent struggle between, you know, the minority and the majority, Kaduna South, you know, Southern Zaria crisis and the rest. And so when the presidential election, there were also allegations that some of the Christians in Kaduna South were campaigning for the PDP candidate instead of the Labour Party candidate. And even though you saw Labour Party...
And is that not true? The result would appear to justify that, because the Labour Party did very badly in Kaduna State, unlike the result it got during the presidential election.
Yes, so when it came to the presidential election, a lot of them, Labour Party campaigned for, you know, so you saw Labour make inroads into Kaduna the way they made a lot of inroad into Jos because of the fear of the minority in Kaduna State.
That's during the presidential election.
Yes, during the presidential. But overall, the PDP, you know, took over, you know, won most of the seats in that presidential election.
Yes.
But Ubasani, the APC presidential governorship candidate, you know, has serious backing from the governor. And also, you will give it to him that he had worked in the state. He's tried, you know, his best. But
yes,
the fact that PDP, you know, consistently had, you know, Kano is close to Kaduna State, and the PDP also, in that area, Kaduna is seen like the political headquarters of the North. You know, so some of the strong men of PDP in the North who believed it is still their turn to rule, it is still their turn to govern Nigeria, you know, would want to see Kaduna as a platform to show strength. If they're able to retain Kaduna, then they can probably rebound back from there, you know. So that's, it now became, let's push Labour aside, let us actually close ranks in PDP. And that's why you saw the heated, you know, as the result were coming, it was neck to neck, until, you know, the APC candidate, Ubasani, breasted the tape. And also some of the persons, like Ahmed Sani, yes, the Senator Ahmed Sani, also had been in the trenches with Ubasani for a long time. Mind you, you know, remember he replaced Ahmed Sani in the Senate. So all of these factors also contributed to the fact that...
Don't you think one of the reasons also why the APC struggled in that state, even though it won it struggled, could also be, and I think I would like to direct this question to Dio as well, that one of the reasons why the APC struggled in that state also could be the fact that they also presented a Muslim ticket, because the current deputy governor is the running mate of the governor-elect.
Yeah, yes, I wanted to go there because religion played a very key role. Apart from the fact that the PDP saw the outgoing governor Nasir El-Rufai as betraying, you know, the northern ideology or the northern demand that they still want to retain power. You know, Nasir El-Rufai in his second term toyed with the idea of a Muslim ticket. You know, he succeeded with it. And with the factor, the Muslim ticket of the presidential candidate of the APC becoming a key factor, he didn't look at all of that. He still wanted to push with the idea. And that, you know, also made a lot of people, you know, rather than, you know, split the vote of the PDP with Labour, moved from Labour massively into PDP, and would want to also make a representation, you know, in the state. And that's why, you know, the APC had a battle on their hand. And if not for, you know, the grace of the same Nasir El-Rufai, that state would have gone to PDP easily.
Dio, what do you think?
Yes.
Because Ubasani is a running mate, is the current deputy governor of the state. Of course, she's from Kaduna South. Unfortunately, this time, it would appear the people of Kaduna South didn't, you know, for them, the idea that she's from Kaduna South didn't count. For them, what counts the most would appear to be her religion.
Well, you see, it's interesting because on the one hand, in some cases we are saying...
So how does one identify? It's a problem.
Yeah, because in some cases we are saying, well, religion didn't matter and it was the ability that people voted for. In this case, we are not saying, well, Muslim ticket made a difference. In the presidential, the Muslim didn't sit well with some people to where it alienated them, but in some governorship elections is what has made the difference. I also don't think we can discount the El Rufai factor, though.
Yes,
because,
that's true.
Yeah, I think he played a major role. Especially remember that he came out very early in support of the presidential candidate. He stood very strong and even locked horns with the federal government and the CBN. He was the first one to come out with that allegation that the whole Naira redesign policy was targeted at their party's presidential candidate. So the fact that he stood so strongly behind his candidate, I think, also played a major role in helping that one crest the finish tape ahead of the competition.
Of the competition.
Yes.
And if you ask me, look, the governors actually can make the difference in this country. If the governors all pull their weight and they deliver, this country will become a far better place. Far better place. This idea of waiting on the federal government or concentrating on the federal government to do everything, it just doesn't make sense at all. The truth is that if the governors are able to deliver in their various states, then Nigeria as a whole will change. But if they continue to do poorly, then we'll continue to lament. And let's just hope that the just concluded election now would have opened the eyes of some of these governors to see that, look, if they do not perform well, that they'll be booted out of office. At least we can now begin to see that votes really do count. And it's a good thing. That's one good thing about this election. And the hope is that we build on from here. Well, gentlemen, I want to thank you very much for coming on the program. Libros Oshoma, lawyer and political affairs analyst, thank you very much for your time and thank you for your contributions. Dayo Akintobi, thank you very much for coming on the program and thank you for staying with us all through this period. We thank you so very much.
My pleasure.
Well, that's it on the show. We thank you very much for staying with us. We'll see you again next time. Bye-bye.